welcome back to Beating a Dead Horse, the only podcast where the two hosts just repeatedly get debated by movie theater listings. I am, as always, your fucking just dumb Sean McKinda.
And I'm your brainless flyover cow Jackson Keller.
And they got us again. They did it to us again. We're like, you know what? We're gonna watch The Lodge. We're gonna see what that's all about. We're gonna see what it's got going for us. And then it promptly didn't come out this week.
So we needed a new plan. And fortunately, this happened to be the week of the Academy Awards, and so we took a gamble, and we said, well, why don't we just talk about whatever wins Best Picture, unless it turns out to be something that we've already talked about, in which case, fuck.
Thankfully, we'd only talked about 2 of the nominations.
Yeah, and neither was exactly a front runner. Like it wasn't impossible that Joker Once Upon a Time would have won, but it wasn't the most likely thing. We were kind of betting on this being a 1917 episode. But we were absolutely wrong, and this has been just about the best possible turn of events, for me at least.
I mean, listen, I'm not complaining either. So if you have not been keeping up with the Oscars, number one, I don't blame you. This apparently has the lowest turnout, like the lowest viewing audience in a long time for the Oscars, which is fascinating information.
It keeps going down like every year, I'm pretty sure.
More and more people aren't giving a shit because they keep picking movies that people don't remember after the first year that they came out. They're not like the movie of that year. They're the movie that the bunch of old white dudes who are confused by Little Women just decide is the movie. Did you hear about what's going on with Little Women in the Oscars?
No, I did. I mean, I knew that, people were upset that Greta Gerwig didn't get director, but there was something beyond that.
Yeah. So like a bunch of the dudes, I assume that they're dudes, given what I'm about to say, came out and were like, yeah, I just didn't watch Little Women. Like they had special screenings for them to go watch it and they just didn't go. Some of the ones who did go, if you're unfamiliar with Little Women, fantastic fucking movie. One of my favorites of last year, like in my top 3 of last year. But also, it's a movie that has 2 timelines running together to kind of condense the novel. But there's a bunch of like visual tells to make sure that you can tell which timeline it's in. Like there's a whole different color swap. Hairstyles are different. Like they do a lot with it. And people are being like, well, golly gee, mister, I can't understand the timeline of this movie. I just don't get it. And you dense motherfuckers. You are voting on movies for the best movie of the year, and you can't understand cinematic language. What the fuck is wrong with you? And then, oh man, this is something. So Greta Gerwig and Saoirse Ronan have worked together on pretty much most of the movies that Greta Gerwig has directed. She was the lead in Lady Bird. She was the lead in Little Women as well. They like working with each other. And there's some dude, like on a anonymous Vice article or something like that, posted about how, like, you know what? It just makes me sick that these two get to continuously work together. One of these days, the Academy's gonna come in and rip them apart, and that will be it. And it's like this weird...
What?
Yeah, it's like just these 2 people who like working with each other on movies, and they're just like
a lot of directors have like a full on entourage, even like all these same dudes will praise like Nolan and Tarantino, but they have like the same like 5 actors working for him in every movie. What is this guy fucking talking about?
I have no idea. Also, a direct quote from that same guy: "Fuck J-Lo."
Oh.
He didn't like Hustlers.
Clearly not.
So yeah, that's our Oscars rant. Or my Oscars rant, should I say, on why people are probably tuning in less because you get numbnuts like that.
So I think it's interesting. I think that the Oscars as an institution, while the problems that they have are like plentiful.
No.
I think no, surely not. I think that the role that they serve, or the role that they should be serving, is an important one. I think that putting yes, the actual ceremony kind of is like Hollywood jerking itself off, but by like showing off a lot of kind of prestige movies and like dramas and other sorts of movies that maybe wouldn't get the sort of attention from different kinds of people without this sort of glamorous, glitzy like push. I think that's sort of valuable. I think it's a good thing that like they expanded the Best Picture nominees to 10, more chances for like people to say like, oh, like there's these movies in the race, there's a chance for more variety. So I think that like they're not totally pointless. So it's frustrating whenever there is like some Oscars bullshit, which there always is. There's always something. But I do also think that they are moving ever so slightly in a direction, and it might be too late to save themselves from being like a ratings disaster just because of how slow this particular like Leviathan is to move. But I think that in the past couple of years, Green Book is kind of an outlier. Like, last year, everyone's already forgotten about Green Book, except to mention it as sort of the like pinnacle Oscar award movie. But it's actually kind of the outlier in terms of recent picks. This year, of course, Parasite won, which is why we're going to be talking about it today, and I couldn't be more thrilled with. I actually did watch the show with my mom this year, so there was a lot of nice stuff going on with that. Spoiler alert, the movie absolutely deserved it. The year before that, Shape of Water, which wasn't my favorite movie of the year, but at least was like a weird Guillermo del Toro monster romance, not really something you would expect like the Academy to really go all in for.
A movie that this is something that we talked about in that podcast when we did it way back when. Go listen to that episode. It's a great episode. Do not, if you are going on a double date with friends and you're meeting your friend's girlfriend for the first time, Shape of Water is not the movie to take them to.
And then the year before that, Moonlight, which is like a coming of age drama, but it's also a coming of age drama about like a black gay boy living in like an impoverished situation, and that particular experience is not something that we expect from the like Ancient Gamer Academy. And so I think that's interesting. And then you have like, Jordan Peele winning like a screenwriting award. So like he gets to vote on the Academy too. And that like the way that it works, it's sort of like a cumulative effect in that the more sort of diverse and interesting movies win awards, the more diverse and interesting people will kind of be voting on them. And I think that like it's good that we have this kind of push, and that if more interesting movies keep winning, there will be more varied voices, meaning more varied votes, meaning perhaps less thoroughly predictable winners, as we've seen this year. I don't know if anyone really predicted Parasite winning for a lot of reasons. So, maybe that's a sign that things are slowly changing, but maybe they're changing too slowly and the Oscars will disappear because no one watches them anymore.
It's possible. But we're here to talk about Parasite, not just the Oscars. So we should probably talk a little bit about Parasite now that we've spent 10 minutes inundating our listeners who are expecting a movie podcast to talk about Oscars and the dumb fuckery that exists within that. Parasite.
This movie was fucking amazing. It was fucking great.
If you don't follow me on social media, you might not know this. This was the third time I'd seen this movie in theaters. This is the first time I saw it in black and white. I'm a fan of it, to say the least. Yeah, I really, really like this movie. I think this is the movie that I've seen the second most in theaters. Did that make sense?
Yes, you got it. You nailed it.
What you won't hear is me sitting around for 30 seconds trying to figure out how to formulate that sentence in my head, because I have edited that out. But just trust me, it was there. Yeah, so Jackson, tell us about Parasite a little bit here. You're the the novice, I'll let you open up for us.
I am the neophyte. As you may recall, if you were there during the great deluge of quality film in late October, early November of 2019, Parasite was a movie that I wanted to see in theaters. And the thing is, even though I'm no longer in Marquette, where like seeing a movie like Parasite would be just fucking impossible. Like the only movie theater for miles and miles and hours is only going to show the biggest like blockbuster releases, the moneymakers. So that's a different situation here. I do have access to more theaters where I'm currently living, but that doesn't always mean that they're close by. And the really prestige stuff, like pretty much anything that's going to be subtitled, is going to be an hour away in Cleveland. And around the time Parasite came out, there was a bunch of snowstorms. I missed both it and Jojo Rabbit, even though I wanted to see both and potentially talk about both on the podcast, because everyone had been telling me it was great. I had seen the trailers. They looked great. And just never got around to it. And have been meaning to, so the fact that it has won, and this is what we're talking about, has been quite the fortuitous event for me, because I'm not usually the sort of guy. I really don't enjoy watching movies at home too much. I really do prefer like the theater experience. Like if there is ever like a special screening of something, I will always go out of my way to try and see it that way. Not that a good movie isn't still a good movie by myself, but it's harder to energize myself when I'm just sort of sitting around. When I'm just sort of sitting around, I'm much more likely to turn on a video game or like turn on some stupid anime or something when I'm relaxing. Whereas with a movie, I kind of want it to be an event. I want to like sit back in a dark theater in a big, on a big screen and just sort of take it all in, make an event of it. So even though I say that I should go out of my way to watch things, I don't often do it, which is why doing this podcast is great, because it forces me to. We haven't given the autumn corner for a little while, but she actually watched this with me. Yeah. She actually watched this with me and also thought it was amazing. Thought it completely deserved Best Picture, which I agree. I don't know if it was my favorite movie of 2019. That probably still is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but it's close. She really loved it. We were both like glued to the screen. I completely agree with a friend of mine's statement. He says he said it's basically the best movie that he's ever seen, and that his metric for that is that he did not feel out of it for 1 second.
Is this the same friend that also said Alita Battle Angel was the best metric he ever saw?
This is that same guy. So take this with a grain of salt, I suppose. His movie of the year would indeed have been Alita Battle Angel if Parasite hadn't come out.
Oh,
so
Christ, thank God for Parasite.
Thank God for Parasite, doing God's work, saving us from the Oscars, saving us from Duncan's takes, like just incredible. But I completely agree with his with that statement that it's completely enrapturing. My only caveat is that the dog was being really fucking annoying while we were watching this, so I had to take myself out of it a couple of times, which made it even worse. I was just itching. Like every time I had to pause, I was like, come on, like, you shitty dog, you better go outside and pee. Like you're taking away my Parasite time.
Yeah, this is, as I said, the third time I've seen this movie, and this is one of the very few movies that I think actually get faster the more times you see it. Like, I feel like, in general, rewatching a movie is an interesting experience because I feel like it kind of slows down as your brain knows what's coming and is kind of anticipating a little bit more. But this time, holy shit, I was just full in on that ride, and, like, 2 hours, 12 minutes flew by so fucking fast. And I knew it was coming. It was, oh my God. I found my happy place because I walked into the theater before anyone else did. It was just me in there. I had a fucking beer in my hand. I'm like, God damn, I'm going to go sit down, watch a goddamn black and white edition of Parasite. Just going to chill out with my beer. This is going to be incredible. It's an empty theater. The theater filled up pretty hard, which I was expecting. But like, let me tell you, I picked whatever seat I fucking wanted, and like, there was 10 minutes there where I'm just like, it's me. Now there's 2 other people here. This is ideal viewing conditions. Oh, baby, yes. And then it got busier. But I think that also was very good for Parasite, and we'll talk about why in a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes the theater experience, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes you have a child popcorn death battle in The Incredibles, and sometimes it makes for a good anecdote for what makes a movie so effective, which Sean has for us. And I think we're kind of reaching our limit on what we can say without going into specifics, because it's one of those, right? Like, surely it is.
Yeah, I will say, and this is a hearty recommendation, watch Snowpiercer if you haven't yet. That's another one of Bong Joon-ho's movies. It was released on Netflix. It was pretty much buried by Harvey Weinstein. Fuck Harvey. And it is absolutely incredible. By far one of my favorite movies. I was almost late to a class in college once because I burned through it. My other roommate watched it with me, just completely enraptured. It's absolutely fucking incredible. Highly, 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 highly recommended. So just as an aside, go watch more of his stuff. He's a very, very good director, very good writer.
I actually did not realize that he did Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
I have not seen that, and we'll take that hearty recommendation.
One of my favorites. I need to watch The Host, which is supposed to also be very, very good.
He's the host too? Man,
yeah.
He's actually made a lot of movies that I'm familiar with. I didn't know that this that was all in his oeuvre.
Yeah. He's also done Mother. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I think I've heard of that one, yeah.
And he did the Netflix release Okja.
That also sounds vaguely familiar. But yeah, shit. I mean, he's paid his dues. I mean, he's earned that fucking Academy Award. Jesus.
Yeah. I do want to say one last thing, just because just to talk up Parasite a little bit more if you haven't seen it yet. In general, when it comes to like the Best Picture winners, the Best Picture contenders and whatnot, you have like a feeling of like, I see what you're doing. You're gunning for an Oscar here. That's what this is. We all know that's what this is. You can't hide it. Parasite does not feel like that. Parasite feels like the movie that just kind of fell into the Oscars. And I know there's like a lot of campaigning and a lot of hard work that went behind getting this Best Picture nomination and win. But the movie itself doesn't feel like a movie that would have been a contender. It's a movie full of heart and talent and skill of someone who just wants to make a movie that ended up being like arguably a movie of a generation. Like, it is just encompassing so many just ideas and anxieties and I keep just doing that but you know what? It's incredible. It's so fucking good. I really, really like this movie. Bong Joon-ho is an absolutely incredible director and deserves all the respect in the world. So with that, spoilers?
Just real quick, actually, I have one
God
last thing
damn
to
it,
say.
we're just doing this to each other.
But no, this is it before spoilers, I promise, because you're absolutely right, and it reminds me that because I didn't see this in the theater, we ordered it on like pay-per-view, like instant streaming, like what have you. Like, we saw that it was characterized as a comedy after having seen like bits. And we were like, what? Because it didn't seem like a comedy. But this movie's funny as fuck. And it's the absolutely, like, I think my favorite tone of that of a work of art can be. Very like funny in a glib kind of dark way, while still also being chock full of theme and character and lots of intense bullshit. Lots of tension. You could a comedy thriller, I dare say.
It's honestly a movie that I would even go further and say, like, whatever you think it's going to be about, you're probably wrong. Because I had my own set of ideas on what I thought this was going into it, and what I got was not at all what I was expecting. So go in as blind as possible. I think that's by far the best way to do it.
Yes.
Just know it's absolutely incredible, but I'm sure you're already well aware of that, if not from the countless critics who have been swearing by it since the Palme d'Or, then by the Oscar, if nothing else. So, fuck yeah, Parasite. Are we good now?
We good. We said it all.
All right, cool. Now let's get into spoilers. Before we do, though, this is the final interruption, I promise, because this is actually like the pre-spoiler interruption. I'm going to just say, if you're enjoying the podcast, please go follow us on Twitter at BADH_cast. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/BADHcast. Leave us a review on iTunes. Tell your friends, whatever you want to do, it can help us get bigger, and that's always appreciated. Next week, we're going to be talking about Sonic the Hedgehog, but we have a little bit of a twist for you, because we're going to be comparing it to what Nintendo doesn't. That didn't work. But we're going to be talking about the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Head-to-head, old school showdown. Mario versus Sonic. We're bringing it back. We're bringing it to the 90s.
Yeah, man. Radical and all that good shit. Can we just move on now? I've just said that, and I really don't want to stew in it.
It's too late. We're already stewing. But
I'm kind of squirming, honestly. I don't like where this energy is.
It's gonna be a hoot and a holler. We're gonna get some nice 90s tood in, whether it's from the period piece that is the batshit insane live action Super Mario Brothers film, or the equally potentially batshit insane dug straight from the 90s Sonic film. Who will win? Who will be the most amazingly terrible?
If you haven't watched the Super Mario Brothers movie yet, by the way, grab some friends, grab a couple beers this weekend, and do yourself a favor and watch it. We've seen this movie already. We're gonna watch it again, of course. It's very, very good. It's awful. It's great.
Do your homework on this one. It is, without spoiling too much. If you accept the premise that a Mario movie is kind of a stupid idea in the first place,
it is.
It is actually amazing on its own terms as something that is just at once like peak 90s, yet also this completely buck wild fever dream.
Oh, Christ. All right, let's talk Parasite. Let's dive into the spoilers of Parasite. In which I guarantee we're pretty much just gonna gush about it. We have some like thematic elements that we want to talk about a little bit further towards the end, but I know you in particular want to talk a little bit more about characterization.
Yeah, and more specifically, kind of related to our discussion we had about No Country for Old Men, specifically about like audience sympathy and like where it sort of lies and how it sort of shifts. So the thing about this movie is that, you know, as far as our premise, we have our central family, this kind of poor family, illustrated very well, not just by the set of their little like underground apartment, but also that the first thing in the movie is like, fuck, the Wi-Fi is cut off. Like, let's huddle in the bathroom and, you know, try and get the Wi-Fi signal in the corner just so we can like take on like a job. It's presented in a really funny way. It's presented in a really visual way. It's a great fucking scene.
As an aside, this is something I'm going to occasionally chime in throughout this with a little bit of, here's things that you might not have noticed on your first walkthrough, and I've seen it 3 times now, so...
Give us the business, Sean, please.
First and foremost, this family is the Kims. It's just worth mentioning because we're going to butcher Korean pronunciation, and I'm so sorry, but we can... It's the Kims and the Parks, so like we'll probably just refer to it as like Ma Kim, Dad Kim, something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm so sorry in advance. We're not gonna try because we're gonna do it really, really badly, and that is just not fair to anyone. So Kims and Parks. The Parks are the rich family. As an aside, going back to what I was going to say, is early on, they're folding pizza boxes to make money. And they mentioned that, you know, one person isn't folding, like a quarter of them were wrong, were failed, which means that one person was folding them wrong. And like you will see in the scene where they look back at the dad and the dad looks shameful and whatnot. But if you watch him folding, you can even see him fold it wrong. Like at one point, he goes to throw the box back, and you can see the tab flapping out that they're referring to. Like it's that intense. Like you can see him even folding it wrong. Like I was very in tune on that. I'm like, I wonder if you can, and you definitely can.
Oh, marvelous attention to detail. Beautiful. So basically, here's our premise. You have poor, struggling Kim family. Kim the junior, the younger, the son. He is talking to his buddy, and his friend says, "Hey, I got a great opportunity for you. There's this like ditzy rich family. I'm, going overseas. How about you take over and be the daughter's English tutor?" And, and then he's like, "All right, sick." And slowly, just kind of through like a comedy of errors, like building a house of cards of lies and deception, the entire Kim family, becomes under the employ of the Parks in one way or another.
Lying to them about who they are. They are not. They're pretending to be completely unrelated to one another. I believe the chain of events is the son brings in the daughter, who is the cousin's friend's roommate or something like that, and the daughter brings in the dad, who is the father, her uncle's
driver.
Her father's brother's driver, I believe, is the correct chain of events there. And then the dad brings in the mom just through being like, I was scouted for this, home service type of deal, and you should call here and get a job with them. And it's very good. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna keep saying that, but it's very good.
Very good.
Very good.
Yes, so we have this nice little chain of deception, and it starts off, it sort of escalates in that at first it's just the son lying about his credentials, but otherwise being fairly capable as an English tutor. Then it escalates to the son lying about being related to the daughter, and she is basically just making up a bunch of bullshit that she read on Wikipedia when talking to the Park's youngest about art therapy.
Oh my god. The Park mother, her acting is so over the top and so great. Both of her like horrified gasps are incredible.
She is great. She's like a lot of the movie, I think a lot of the humor works from sort of the dry kind of quips and like straightforwardness of the Kim family when they're sort of like talking amongst themselves, like, what a bunch of fucking fools, and just sort of like telling it straight. And then the kind of clownish buffoonery of the Park family, particularly the mom. The mom's the standout when it comes to being this almost a caricature of like a rich kind of clueless mom, but just not enough so that it doesn't become distracting. It's a very fine balance struck, really good.
Which is this whole movie. It's a very fine balance just throughout the whole thing, with every bit of it. Tension, comedy, goofiness, seriousness, caricature, real person.
And so now, like, speaking of kind of how she's kind of like a buffoon, kind of ditzy, that starts to get into some really interesting places as far as character sympathy. Because on the one hand, like if we're looking at the Kims first and foremost, on the one hand, like, yes, it is very easy to empathize with like their struggles and poverty. Particularly, one of the best fucking scenes is when, after a really, really intense escape, when shit kind of starts hitting the fan, the house of cards starts to collapse, and they have to flee the Park house in the middle of the night and pretend like they haven't just been there. When they come home to discover that their house is like completely submerged in water, and everyone in this poor neighborhood,
the house is completely submerged in water and sewage, which is very important because there's a lot of visual imagery of sewage flowing from the Park family's house to the Kim's family.
Yes, that is a very important detail.
There's a very poignant shot towards the end there where the dad, after being trapped in the house after, killing Mr. Park, looks down at the toilet in kind of like a recognition of like where it's going, and it's very poignant and very weird.
Yeah, and so like. So on the one hand, like, if we're comparing this to something like No Country, like what we said about that movie is that like that's a protagonist who's very hard to relate to, and that you can kind of infer that like he's not super rich or successful, but like otherwise just through a lot of the more grating elements of his character, he's kind of hard to root for. This is much more explicitly like easier to root for, right? Like kind of an underdog story. But on the other hand, the movie doesn't make it that simple, where it's just like, you know, the proletariat's good, the bougie's bad. Because like there are lots of little moments, and one of my favorite scenes of one of my favorite bits of characterization is when the mom, Ma Kim, is talking when they're all getting drunk and sort of basking in the glory of the Park family's house. And they're saying, well, you know, like the Parks are okay, like they're nice, and Ma Kim's like, bah, like, you know, they're nice because they're rich. Like you can afford to be nice when you're rich. Like, you know, no, you don't have to give a shit about anything. No one is a real problem to you. And it's a very interesting and like pointed sentiment that like is, you know, is kind of hard to disagree with when you really think about it. But then like the way that the movie kind of undercuts that when she follows that up with like, I'd be as nice as them if I were rich. And then immediately after, like the dog comes over and she kind of like smacks it in the face, like kind of pushes it away, like, hey, get the fuck out of here. And so like just the like subtle things like that, and also mentioning the fact that like, again, it's not just that they lied to get to their positions, which, you know, may or more or less be harmless. It's that they lied and pushed a bunch of people out.
They did some bad things to people.
Yeah, like this is...
But that's kind of the point, though, too.
Right, because then that gets into the whole... this whole idea of, like, class warfare of...
And like, the capitalist idea of, fuck you, got mine type of deal.
Right. And that, you know, you can't see, you know, who your real enemy is when you're too busy like infighting amongst yourselves for one reason or another. And you know, that's something that's done really well when the movie takes that turn to the crazy like North Korea bunker that the previous housekeeper's husband has been living in.
Which, oh my god, watching the movie again and knowing what's going on with the lights.
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah, it suddenly recontextualizes. Every time he goes up those steps, the lights turn on. And up to that point, just like, oh, it's like a sensor or something. And then you watch it knowing that that's happening, and you just see the guy down there pressing it. And it adds this whole nother level of just like, oh, God, to it. Oh, it's...
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I didn't think about that at all.
There's a lot of stuff that you don't think about until you watch it again, and it adds so much to it. This is a movie like, oh, you know, movies reward rewatches and shit like that. It's a thing people say. It does. It's a movie that rewards rewatching it.
Yeah. Oh my god. Such fucking attention to detail. And I think the husband's characterization, like in the place of all this, is really interesting. How he is like weirdly devoted to Father Park. Like he's like, oh man, like I wish I could be like him. He's got like a shrine full of all his like tech photos and stuff.
I mean, that's just like. That really reflects the identity of like those who worship the rich, being like, oh, I could be like them one day, and like they've clearly fought to earn their position there. Like there's a lot of like just class identity with that I think is this whole movie's about class identity, as we're saying, and I think that like that's a really interesting embodiment that you don't really see as much, you know? Like there's always like that whole like the bourgeoisie's bad, the proletariat's bad, but like there's never been like, you don't really see the, but what if I actually like the rich and I want to be the rich, even at the detriment to myself? I am literally living in the basement of the rich, and if they knew this, they would kick me out, calling the police, and I would literally die for it.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing the movie does that keeps all this subtle, that keeps all this as like subtext. Is that there are definitely cases, like I'm thinking like Wall Street, like the Oliver Stone movie, Gordon Gekko and all that, where like you have the like idolization of the rich and then they like disappoint you in one way or another. and it's, pretty typical, like, pride before the fall. But the husband doesn't ever really get that moment. He
dies worshiping them.
Yeah, like his rage is 100% directed at the Kim family. And I mean, pretty justifiably so in this particular instance.
After for killing his wife, not so much for the invasion part.
No, yeah. I mean, but because that's the other thing, is that, like, we are still. It's just a tangled web of sort of sympathies in that, with even when you can sympathize and understand, like, the Kim family's plight, like, sometimes you just find yourself, like, taking a step back and being like, wait a minute, they fucking murdered that poor lady. Like, she was just trying to, like, see her husband after this family, like, ruthlessly chased her out of her, like, steady employment. Like,
maybe when you take a step back, maybe the true parasite was the capitalism we made along the way.
Oh, shit!
It was. Spoiler alert. It was.
It ain't either of the families. It's the system. It's the framework.
Bleeding us all dry and making sure that we stay subservient where we should be and all that good shit. You know the fucking... It's a podcast. Everyone talks like this on a podcast. You goddamn know what we're talking about.
But no, I really love it, like, if we're talking about murders and
boy. Sorry, I'm very excited about this movie just in general. Like, I'm just like, you're coming at this fresh and hot, and I'm just kind of like being the hype man in the background, and I'm fucking hyped for it because I know what's coming.
So, like, I kind of want to bring it back. Like, speaking of class warfare and this sort of complex web of character sympathies and, what is moral and immoral and who, etc., all that bullshit. I kind of want to bring it back to Beating a Dead Horse classic and talk about some of the individual deaths in this movie, because I think that they're all really telling and they're all interesting, either for, like, a narrative reason or just, like, a visual reason, or both. Most often both.
A good film should be.
Yeah, like a high quality, like a best picture should be, I dare say.
Someone should give it that.
So yeah, someone should really recognize this film's achievements in, like, an academy of some sort.
Yeah. It's maybe. I wonder if there's, like, a French film festival that it could win some stuff at, like, just across the board, just, like, be a really big winner of a lot of awards.
Shame there isn't anything like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess, like, Sean, why don't you talk about kind of the first real death of the movie? Because it serves as a really nice microcosm for a lot of things.
Yeah. So once the Kims have learned of the husband and wife living in the basement of the Parks house, there's a whole scene going on that's basically like a fucking Looney Tunes dog piling. Like, you can basically see the smoke coming off of them as they're wrestling for the phone and control. And eventually the Kims come out on top. But at one point, the wife from the basement wife, yeah, just gonna let that one go. Runs up the stairs, and as the Park family is returning home unexpectedly, and Ma Kim just casually kicks her down some cement stairs. And it's framed after this, like, frantic scene, continuing to be kind of Looney Tunesy and funny and goofy. And this is just one of my all-time favorite movie theater experiences. It's happened all 3 times. It's so good because the kick gets laughs, the tumble down the stairs gets laughs, and then she hits her head on the concrete wall at the bottom, and there's a skull crack sound, and the entire audience goes, ooh, and then silence. And it
Dead
is
fucking silent. Jesus.
Beautiful. It is some of the best fucking just audience reactions. I love it so much. It's happened, as I said, 3 times now. 3 times it's happened, and it's great every fucking time.
That's the mark of a brilliant team playing the viewer like a damn fiddle. It's and it's real again when we're talking about like a microcosm, like the movie lurches from like comedic to dramatic.
I'm sorry, can I just suggest stumbles down the stairs from comedic to like tense? Because like she fell down the stairs. Like that's what I'm trying to do here. Please say something so I can stop talking. Jackson, you're still not talking.
Did you guys hear anything? I didn't hear anything. Anyway, so I'm gonna let you sit in that one like a dog who's peed in its crate. So,
oh shit, the dog imagery. Oh my god, watching this again, there's like so much dog imagery to this movie that is absolutely incredible. Like how they treat the lower class as dogs in a lot of ways. Like there's a lot of them clambering on all fours and hiding under tables and like following at the heels of their masters. And like it is so good once you see it. Because like the first time I'm just like, what's up with the dogs? Like I thought this was, when I first went in to see this movie, I thought it was like some sort of like monster movie of some sort. Because I saw like talk about the basement and stuff like that, and I thought like there would be something weird going on with that, like Annihilation-esque, as like the dogs slowly started multiplying. Because the first time you only see one, and then in the background a second one runs across. I'm like, ooh, what's that going on with that? And then like a third one shows up later, and I didn't really figure out what was going on with it until you kind of start equating the dogs to how they treat their in-house servants and start seeing, because like there's times, as I said, they're like on their hands and knees following, nipping at the heels of their masters. It's very good.
I didn't even think about the dog imagery that much, but you're absolutely right. And that does bring me to sort of the expectation with the basement and the trailers, in that like when I saw the trailers, I sort of had the expectation that this movie would go in kind of a Get Out sort of direction. Like there was going to be the rich family was, you know, harvesting their servants or something like that, you know, doing some weird, you know, real crazy space brain shit. But I think what's a really nice touch is, like, you know, that's maybe what you'd expect from kind of the imagery of, like, the creepy bunker in the basement. The family doesn't even know about it. The Park family has their own failings. Like, they're not cartoon caricatures of, like, terrible rich people the way you'd expect, well, like, real rich people like Donald Trump to be. But like, they're more, like, for the most part, like, outwardly inoffensive and friendly. Like, not horrible people, just
very microaggression type of people.
Yeah, very clueless. Clueless is the dominant word. It's most effectively shown by the wife, but, you know, just the plot and everything around them, like, shows that the whole family is kind of draped in this cluelessness. And I think that's what makes subtly one of the little twists with the basement, the fact that they don't know about it, that this struggle is going on right under their nose, that makes it 1,000 times more effective than
literally by the way, literally and figuratively. That's the whole thing. The class struggle's happening under their noses and they are oblivious to it.
Yeah. And so
theme alert.
I am ThemeBot. Theme identified.
ThemeBot like to paint.
ThemeBot like to paint. Oh my god. ThemeBot can never shut the fuck up when Chappie's happening, because they just say the theme over and over again. Anyway. So, and I think that, like, the way they handle the microaggressions and, like, the again, if we're talking about riding that line of sympathy, it's like, yeah, like, you know, the rich family, they're, for the most part, they're not, like, bad people, but I'm not, like, crying that they're getting kind of scammed either. But, like, the way that the movie builds up, like, when they overhear...
Especially because, like, the rich family, too, is talking about how they're still making more money. They are not getting... They're getting scammed, but they're not. Like, they're paying those people for their services, arguably, presumably, far under what they're worth. But, like, they're not really getting scammed in any way, shape, or form.
No. You maybe could argue that the sister is pulling a kind of scam, but everyone else is doing, like, a legitimate service.
I mean, yeah, but, like, come on. Art critics, like, they're, like, movie critics and shit. Like, they're all just pulling scams. What the fuck? What do they know?
Beating a dead horse is where you come for those self nags.
We can't let ourselves get too big of a head, you know?
we gotta poke holes in this balloon every once in a while. But yeah. So, but I think the movie does a really good job of building that up, and like the moment where like the dad Kim has the growing frustration with Mr. Park, you know, how he overhears him talking about his smell, you know, and how like everyone on the subway smells like that, like, and how he's roped into doing the stupid fucking Indian attack with the birthday party, and just like it finally reaches a head when suddenly like the rich family kind of shows their true colors, like really crosses the line where it goes from kind of microaggression to outward aggression.
Crossing that line. It's a thing from the movie as well.
Oh.
Sorry, continued. Outward aggression. I just...
And I actually forgot that was a part of it. I was legit having like a dementia moment.
I thought your silence was just gonna be like, "Oh, let's get the fuck out, get the fuck out."
No,
it was.
No, I was legit trying to think about what that had to do with it. Oh God, my brain is failing me.
Listen, one of us has seen this movie 3 times.
Fair. And so like when the daughter is literally bleeding to death, just gotten stabbed in the fucking heart, and the mom is actively fighting off this knife wielding, seemingly come from nowhere like maniac, and all the rich family can think about is that their poor little twerp has fainted, like doesn't even lend a second thought to the people literally dying in his backyard. And that's when you reach the breaking point, and Father Kim just fucking stabs him, takes him out.
Credit where credit due. They did mention that the little brat could theoretically die as a result of these passing out. I don't know how accurate that is. I mean, it does kind of sound like the type of like hyper sensationalized things that there's a certain culture of people that will believe into. But also, I mean, it could be a thing. Like, I'm not here to say that is incorrect information. I am not a doctor. I am an idiot. So...
Well, from my own reading, just as like a viewer, I am also an idiot. But the way that scene plays off to me, one, because it's coming from Mama Park, who generally is kind of a clown. Like already, we're sort of led to have at least a little bit of doubt about a lot of the things that she says. And two, just from my own experience, like I've known a few people who have had problems with like seizures and stuff during childhood.
I did, actually. Fun fact.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had febrile seizures growing up. Oh,
shit. Yeah. And so from that, like, they're serious, of course, but like, if you don't get to the hospital in 15 minutes, they're gonna die. Like, not from the people that I've known. So like that leads me to believe, and even if like it'd be more understandable if like the mom is the one like tending to her kid, but the fact that the dad turns just a complete blind eye, like all he can think about is the keys when there's all this madness. It shows that divide, and it shows the parasite of capitalism, in that everyone just gotta look out for themselves, look out for number one. Fuck you, got mine.
So I want to take a minute to kind of talk about that "fuck you, got mine" attitude and the parasite of capitalism, because this is an element of the movie that did take me 3 viewings to really kind of parse out my thoughts on, which is the Scholar Stone. Something that I was very confused by for a while, and like I'm just like I don't see what its point is. Like I'm kind of confused as to what it represents and everything. And like I even did some research into it to be like, is it a cultural thing? Obviously I don't know much about Korea, so like trying to figure that out. And I came up largely empty-handed until I kind of parsed out. I'm like, hang on a second. Let me, change how I'm looking at things. And like, honestly, there's an argument to be made that like the Scholar's Stone is just emblematic of the entirety of capitalism and greed in general. Because they get it. That's when they start investing in like this whole class warfare, like, just constant greed, looking for more money and everything like that. It is the ultimate downfall of the son, who gets bludgeoned in the head with it. In what is one of the most brutal scenes in any movie I have ever watched, and it's not even that like brutal in general. It's just so hard to watch. Highly recommended for that alone. But like the line where he's holding it, like he rescues it from the sewage because it's like that important, and like he clings to it. It's just like it's what he's clinging to, and like he wants to go kill this other family for capitalism with capitalism, and like it feels very emblematic of that to me. And like it's not until he let goes of it that like the final sequence where he goes back to the house and rescues his dad, be it a dream sequence or not, it's kind of left ambivalent in my opinion, is where he kind of lets go of that idea of capitalism. I think turns more to, we need to stay together as a family. It doesn't matter if we get the money or not. The important thing is that, we're together, and letting go of that "fuck you, got mine" and embracing more of the whole.
Oh, all right. So since you've seen it 3 times, you probably remember better than me. Is he? Because I know he lets go of it at one point. Does he ever like pick it back up in that last scene? Is he still holding on to it? Because I think that's important.
No. He puts it down as after the whole thing goes by, and so like they get the stone. It kind of hangs around in the background of their sub basement for a while, and then when it floods is when it kind of really comes back into focus. He picks it up, brings it with him to the refuge gym, essentially. Brings it with him to the party, which is where he gets killed with it. He ends up with it again somehow. And as he's talking about like his plans to rescue his dad by buying the house, you see him put it back into a river, and that's where it disappears.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Because the way that I read the ending was pretty cynical.
There is a way to read it very cynically as well. Like, I was thinking about that too, because the first time, a couple times I saw it, I'm like, oh, this is a very hopeful ending. And then I kind of thought about it. I'm like, with the rest of this movie, is it really though?
Yeah, because the way that I was thinking about it, like I definitely see the more hopeful aspect or potential for it, but like the way that I interpreted the like reuniting with the dad scene after he's made enough money, I saw that as like a pipe dream, that like he's still holding on to this idea that despite everything, that he can solve all of his problems by being one of them. That like despite all of this, that's not an idea that he's been able to shake, but that is challenged by him putting the stone in the river.
I think the whole big thing here is mostly that like, you're right that he feels like he could theoretically rescue his dad by becoming one of them, but I think that there's an argument to be made though that he's not becoming one of them to become one of them. He's becoming one of them for an altruistic reason.
Yeah, he's got a purpose. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I'd have to watch it again to really determine how I feel about that. Like you've brought up some good points that go contrary to my own withered, blackened, cynical first impression.
Yeah, the ending was something that definitely I had to marinate on for a while. As I said, like I'm just now really kind of piecing it together. Part of it was I saw it like the first 2 times I saw it was in like within 3 days of one another. So like it was also me going again with Sam, the girlfriend, and just being like, did you like it? And just kind of watching her expression for it. So like my opinions didn't really change much between those viewings. But like kind of marinating on it more, seeing some kind of other people's reflections of it, and coming back to it, I kind of really reinterpreted a lot of what I saw in it. And I think that kind of really helped me clarify where I viewed the Scholar Stone and how it fits in with the rest of the narrative. So It's not a movie. I genuinely don't think it's a movie that you can really parse through one viewing. I think it requires multiple viewings. Huh? It's a great fucking movie. Do we have anything else we want to talk about with it?
I think we've hit the major point.
I do want to leave then, just by saying I think this movie's a really good mirror. Just because like I've seen a lot of people on Twitter being like, I don't understand. Who's the parasite? Their poor people are getting paid for their work, but they're still invading the home. That feels like a parasite to me. And like first and foremost, you understand what a parasitic relationship is? They're not bleeding them dry by any stretch of the imagination. At most, that is a symbiotic relationship. At worst, the rich people are, taking advantage of the poor people. So recontextualize what your view of a parasite is first and foremost. But like, I think it's, if nothing else, very interesting to see how the movie reflects your worldview. It's one that's very much a litmus test for, what your political views might look like.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think that, and I think a lot of that's by design. I think that it's really effective at doing that.
It's also very effective at outing idiots on Twitter.
And isn't that the most important thing in this world?
Because people have just been dunking on people on Twitter who have been like, well, obviously the poor people are the parasites. Like, yeah, all right, cool. You nailed it, bud.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to say that, that the movie's got like complicated dynamics between the two classes of the two families, but if you walk out of the movie thinking that the point is rich people good, you probably weren't paying very close attention, to say the least.
There's a quote from Bong where they're talking about like he's surprised at how much it blew up outside of Korea because he thought it would be a very Korean focused movie just around the culture and the ideas behind it. And he makes a comment to the effect of, but apparently it's a culture that affects the rest of the world. It's a culture we call capitalism, which should tell you pretty much everything you need to know about the politics of this movie, huh?
Yes. Very, very illustrative statement.
All right. Well, are we good?
We good. We Gucci, gang.
I'm letting you stew in that one. You've let me stew in some shit. That one's all you.
I'm rolling in this hog slop.
Oh Christ!
I'm spreading my filth to the 7 seas.
I've been Sean McKinda. You can find me on Twitter at Sean_McKinda, on Twitch at twitch.tv/helpless_Skippy. I'm still not streaming there right now, but you know what? I might be back soon. I might not be. I don't know. I've got a lot going on in my life right now, and I don't know that I need the stresses of streaming in it right now. So we'll see about that. But you can also find some of my writing over at 25yearslatersite.com. I also do their audio editing, so like if you go listen to that, you my fingers are on a lot of their audio stuff, even if my voice is not. Don't do that again. What is wrong with you? No, just fucking give your outro before I cut it out of the podcast.
I've been Jackson Keller. You can find me at twitch.tv/JacksonJKeller. I've taken care of the business. We're getting back to Metal Gear Solid 3 this week. We're doing the highest difficulty, European Extreme. We're going to do all of the games over a period of time. So be a real treat if you came and joined me.
If you want to get in contact with the podcast, you can do so on Twitter at BADH_cast. If you want to get in contact with us way more directly, the best way to do that is by becoming a patron. It's over at patreon.com/BADHcast. $1 a month gets you access to our Discord where you can come yell at us very directly. You can just add us in the channels and we'll be right there being like, hey, you're wrong, not us. We're infallible. $5 a month gets you access to all of our backlog of bonus episodes. We have some really good episodes in there. We highly recommend you check them out if you enjoy the show. We'll be honest with you. We've got some misses in our regular stuff just because, like, we'll go see a movie and be like, well, we don't really have that much to talk about, so we'll just, goof on other shit for a bit. Our bonus episodes are all like real serious, really diving into the meat of things because they're all recommended by people who, give $10 a month. It lets you say, hey, you guys are going to watch Barbie Horse Adventures, and, well, fuck us. I guess we're watching Barbie Horse Adventures.
But we're going to do our damnedest to unpack Barbie Horse Adventures, I'll assure you. We'll give a fucking postmodern, theoretical, feminist analysis of Barbie Horse Adventures.
Go fucking Lindsay Ellis full plate on that shit. Oh. It also gets you a little something that Jackson will tell you about.
Thank you so much, Travis, Julia, Mom, Summer. Thank you all so much for supporting the show and for being our glorious stallions.
It is worth noting, too, that we have our Goodfellas episode for our patrons coming out probably early next week at this point. So, like, stay tuned for that. If you're, like, a big Goodfellas fan, you know, we got you covered.
I am excited. I have not seen Goodfellas, but I love me some crime flicks. I love me the Scorsese that I have seen, so I'm pumped.
It is crazy that like pretty much every movie that we've talked about on that we have not seen. That is fresh to almost all of us on all of them, with the exception I think of the Persona 3 movies, which you had seen once before. So
like twice, yeah. That was also sort of the conceit of that one, is that we were doing a how does it hold up to a person who is intimately familiar with the property versus someone who's only kind of familiar with it.
So yeah, we got some interesting stuff on that side of things. Please go support us and check it out. I promise they're fucking great episodes. All of the quality of this episode or better, because I'm gonna tell you right now, this was a good goddamn episode.
Helps when we got a good goddamn movie to talk about.
It really, really does. Also, thanks to Lords of the Highway for the use of our theme song. It is Suicide, alternate take off the album High Octane, Low Expectations. They're a wonderful band. You should go check them out however you can. See them live, buy their musics, stream them. Stream them. That's the words I'm looking for. Also, thanks to 25 years later site.com for the endorsement. You can find a little button to go check out our podcast stuff on their site. But while you're there, before you go check us out, you should definitely see what they're writing about. There's a bunch of really talented people doing a bunch of really talented writing over there. They got wrestling, they got movies, they got TV shows, they got video games, they got reviews, news, interviews, and all the cues you could ever use. I don't know what the fucking cue is, but I was like vibing with that one there. So
I'm all about it. That was the best endorsement I've ever heard.
I have been trying to get like a good rhyme scheme going on that for like half a year now, and I'm happy I finally did it. It'll probably continue to be shifted because I still don't know what a cue is, but hey, we're on the right path. Next week, we're going to be talking about both Sonic the Hedgehog and the Super Mario Brothers movie. I'm very excited. Please do your homework. Watch the Super Mario Brothers movie. As I said, get a beer, get a friend. You'll have a great time. I promise. It is insane in the best possible way. I don't know what to say about Sonic yet. Neither of us have seen it. But I assume we're going to have some things to say about it.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it'll be a shit show.
If nothing else, we'll talk about how it went from something interestingly bad to boringly bad with the Sonic redesign. And I will probably mention the fact that Tyson Hess is the guy who did the redesign, and you'll understand why next week. So,
come find out.
For now, though, bye.
Don't you go into the ground. Don't you go